morning. Welcome both here in the sanctuary and also online to the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg's Sunday worship service. We're on the unceded ancestral lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole Native people. My name is Ben Atherton-Zeman. I'm the minister here, and today's guest worship leader is well known to many as a singer-songwriter, as a UU minister, and as a climate change activist. But to me, he's just my cousin. Reverend Fred Small is here and is our guest at the pulpit. Welcome, Fred. So if you do believe climate change science, and if you do believe Black Lives Matter, if you do believe it's okay to say gay and be gay, if you believe that LGBTQIA+ people are divine, I have good news. You may have found your church home. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, you are welcome here. We have two announcements today from our board vice president, Beth Stombaugh, and I'm looking for Beth. But while I'm finding Beth, I am going to tell you three announcements. The first is that our Time for All Ages will feature Reverend Fred Small on the guitar, singing Everything Possible. It's his lullaby of affirmation and inclusion, which was, guess what, recently published as a book, and he brought them with him. He has books both in English and in Spanish, Todo lo Posible, for sale, and my mother, Johanna Zeman, and maybe one other person will be out there so that you can buy said book, and Fred would be happy to inscribe it if you wish. Thanks, James. Second, our yearly Stone Soup Sunday is usually this Sunday. However, we're having a congregational meeting, so we have postponed Stone Soup until December 3rd. My third and final announcement is the closing hymn, listed as something else in your order of service, is actually "The Tide is Rising, and So Are We." So that'll be our closing hymn. Beth?
Thank you. This is a message from the board and the Minister Search Committee. We just wanted to let you know that we've heard from at least one person that they're considering attending the meeting today, but abstaining from the vote, which means you will get a ballot but not vote. And for whatever reason, you might feel that you can't vote for or against calling Reverend Ben to be our settled minister. Please understand that the motion can only pass if 80% of those present vote yes. So being counted as part of the members present and getting a ballot and then not voting will affect the quorum, and you'll just automatically be voting no. So please make sure that when you come and you register and get a ballot that you actually vote. And right after service is the congregational vote to call Reverend Ben as our settled minister. And so that we can get the meeting started promptly at noon, we'd like you to register outside in Gilmore Hall as soon as possible, and if you've been a member for at least 60 days. So please attend and vote and get your registration and ballot in Gilmore. And we will have a regular coffee hour and a celebration cake that we've actually voted and cast our ballots, and we will have that those snacks and that cake while we are waiting for our poll workers to count the votes. So that is when our coffee hour will be today. Thank you.
Thank you. And you probably realize this, but the board, the minister search team, today's poll workers, this is a lot of work. So if you please join me in thanking them for all the work they've done putting this vote together. I really appreciate it. We want to give a special welcome to any newcomers who are here this morning. So if you're new or relatively new, would you give a little hand wave? Hello, hello, hello. And if you want, I can come to you. So raise your hand again if you're willing to say a sentence or two. Reverend.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you. Good morning to everyone. My name is Pierre, and I am a retired African Methodist Episcopal pastor. It's good to be home. And thank you, Pastor, for your reception of me. Amen?
Thank you, Pastor. Seeing no hands anywhere else. Thanks for silencing your cell phones. Regarding masks, we are not mandating them. But since there are several in our community who have reported exposure to COVID, we encourage anyone who wishes to wear one. Masks are available at either entrance from our hardworking greeters. Let's take a moment to greet our neighbor and remember to get consent if you're going to hug them or shake their hand.
Good morning.
Morning.
As Sula Danolo lights our chalice, I offer the words of Dina Metzger. There are those who are trying to set fire to the world. We are in danger. We have time only to work slowly. We have no time not to love. Now let's give voice to our shared connections by saying our covenant together. The words can be found in your program and online in the text chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, to help one another. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, day's a breaking in my soul. Bright morning star arising. This song began as a beautiful Appalachian hymn. Some of you know it. It's in our gray hymnal bright morning stars arising, bright morning stars arising. Well, Court Dorsey took that kind of sleepy hymn to the Seabrook nuclear power protests some decades back, and he kicked it up a notch and turned it into a kind of a movement anthem, and then I added some verses because I'm a folk singer and that's what we do. But I invite you to sing this with me, if you will. Please rise in body or in spirit and give this a try. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Days a breaking in my soul. There's some wonderful harmonies to be found in this song, and I love what Pete Seeger used to say about harmony. He said, don't be afraid of harmony. Harmony is any note that your neighbor isn't singing. So give it a try. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Days a breaking in my soul for justice and compassion, for justice and compassion, for justice and compassion, for justice and compassion. Days a breaking in my soul for peace in every nation, for peace in every nation, for peace in every nation, for peace in every nation. Days a breaking in my soul for the healing of creation, for the healing of creation, for the healing of creation, for the healing of creation. Days a breaking in my soul for the future of our children, for the future of our children, for the future of our children, for the future of our children. Days a breaking in my soul. Last time, bright morning star. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Days a breaking in my soul. Beautiful singing. Have a seat. It is time for all ages, and because of the handbell setup, we're going to invite everybody to stay in your seats rather than the little ones coming forward. Sometimes, of course, the time for all ages is a story, and other times it might be a skit or maybe a conversation. Oh, hi! Oh, there she goes. We only lose a couple of Sundays. It's all right. We have cleared off. Oh, I forgot the end of the intro, which is today, the time for all ages is a song. And I'm going to ask you to sing on this one as well. We have cleared off the table, the leftovers saved, washed the dishes and put them away. I have told you a story and tucked you in tight at the end of your knockabout day. As the moon sets its sails to carry you to sleep over the midnight sea, I will sing you a song no one sang to me. May it keep you good company. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one. and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends around. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. That sounds like an awful lot of words all at once, but I'll give you little clues as they come around. Starting with, you can be anybody you want to be. Give it a try. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love. You can love whomever you will. You can travel. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words, and the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. Some children grow up strong and bold, while some are quiet and kind. Some race on ahead, some take it slow, some go in their own way and time. Some women love women, some men love men, some leave every label behind. You can dream all the day, never reaching the end of everything possible you'll find. Don't be rattled by names, by taunts, by games, but seek out spirits true. If you give your friends the best part of yourself, they will give the same back to you. You can be anybody you want to be. You can love. You can love whomever you will. You can travel any country. You can travel any country where your heart leads, and know I will love you still. You can live by yourself. You can live by yourself. You can gather friends. You can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. The love you leave behind when you're done. Thanks for singing.
Children can go to their classes now. Happy trails. We're coming to the time in our worship service for joys, sorrows, and concerns. Those of you on YouTube Live, you are not here physically, but your presence is felt. Please put the joys and sorrows and concerns in your life into the text chat. Right now, Kelly Patton, thank you, Kelly, will place a stone in the water for each one that was submitted this week. And Fred will begin.
Tomorrow, November 20th, we observe International Transgender Day of Remembrance, when we remember those who have been killed for being who they are. Those who face violence on a daily basis, those who have lost loved ones, and those who worry for loved ones. In the words of my transgender colleague, the Reverend Sunshine J. Wolf, may we come to a time when we cease to shame children around gender roles and expression, when we allow for freedom and exploration of identity and expression, into a world that operates from love, especially when things are difficult and confusing. May all of us who live with the threat of violence find support, strength, community, hope, and safety.
Thank you, Fred. Some of us are attending the Transgender Day of Remembrance event across the lake tomorrow at 6 p.m. There's a stone of concern from my wife, Atherton-Zeman. Her mother, Luella, my mother-in-law, had a stroke, and she was taken to the hospital the day before yesterday. So Lucinda is headed up to New England on Tuesday to be with her. There's a stone of concern from Amy Simpson. Her father-in-law, Keith Lennick, just had open heart surgery. Feel better. Earl Waters has a stone of concern. Earl's brother and sister-in-law have fallen twice in the last month. And Earl has a joy as well. It's William Cowan's birthday today. Happy birthday, William. Fearless leader of our soup crew. So let's bring to mind and hold close to our hearts my mother-in-law, Luella, Keith Lennick, Amy Simpson's father-in-law, Earl's brother and sister-in-law, all transgender Unitarian Universalists and all transgender people everywhere, all those known and unknown who are facing challenges and health concerns. Now please join us for our responsive reading that was written by John Motter.
May our hearts not become calloused by the never-ending incidents of oppression and hatred that so many face each day.
Rather, may we keep our hearts open to the positive efforts of so many people causing good trouble in the world. May we have the strength to demand and gain the right for all people to have a safe place to sleep, health care to keep them strong, and the knowledge that their lives matter. The struggle is taking longer than it should. We will get there if we continue to fight what we all know is right.
May all of us find a comforting and compassionate presence in the warmth of fellowship and community.
And Kelly, let's place one more stone for those joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts, perhaps too tender to yet be spoken out loud. The mystery is that we are connected even when we feel apart. So let's rejoice in our beloved community that makes of the many one, and let's take about a minute of silence together. Now I invite you to say the UU St. Pete mission statement out loud. It's printed in your order of service online. It's in the text chat. Our mission is to be an inclusive, evolving religious community that inspires spiritual and intellectual growth to make our world a better place. Bring our mission to life through our wide range of shared ministries: social justice, religious education, pastoral care, and many more.
I knew a man once who tried to save a tree. It was a magnificent red oak planted in the 19th century through numberless winters and springs and summers and autumns. Its roots had penetrated deep into the soil, and its trunk had grown tall and strong. Generations of families and friends and lovers had gathered gratefully in the shade of its broad canopy. And the man loved the tree and held it sacred. But the tree grew close to a building. And one day the owners of the building decided the building needed to be improved and expanded. The tree would have to be cut down, they said. And so the man who loved the tree wrote letters and social media posts to try to change their minds. He organized others and enrolled political leaders in his cause. Save the tree, they cried. The owners were unmoved. It's true, they said, the tree is old and beautiful, but it's actually not in very good health. It's going to die soon anyway. Besides, they said, we have no choice. We've examined every alternative, and none is practical within our budget. The tree must go. Outraged, the man assailed their motives and integrity. His letters and posts grew more acerbic and sarcastic. At last, his belligerence and ill temper drove away even people who also cared about the tree and might have helped save it. And so the tree was cut down. And all who saw its severed limbs couldn't help noticing how healthy they looked. And the man cursed the owners for their stupidity and short-sightedness. This good man who loved trees so profoundly and so passionately had not learned from them. His feverish, frenetic activism was nothing at all like a tree. He championed the sacredness of trees while neglecting the sacredness of human beings, including his own. He knew the worth of trees, not the peace of trees. Don't we all make the same mistake, at least some of the time? More than half a century ago, the Trappist monk and peace activist Thomas Merton warned, there is a pervasive form of contemporary violence to which the idealist most easily succumbs: activism and overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything, is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism, Merton said, neutralizes our work for peace. It destroys our own inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of our own work because it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes work fruitful. Frenzy of our activism destroys our inner capacity for peace, fruitfulness of our work. Actually, Thomas Merton was lucky. He died before Twitter. Twitter, now technically X. Twitter, that twilight zone of snark, contempt, occasional inspiration, and permanent outrage, where I, for one, have wasted far too much of my time. It's easy to be punitive and make others disposable, caution Tom DeWolf and Jody Geddes in The Little Book of Racial Healing. The difficult task, they say, is in telling the truth in ways that seek healing and transformation. We are beset today by a host of daunting challenges, all of them urgent and interconnected, many seemingly intractable, from patriarchy to white supremacy, from public corruption to secret abuse, from anti-Semitism to Islamophobia to transphobia, from gun violence to armed insurrection, from mass incarceration to mass extinction. It is natural for us to feel grief, anger, fear, and despair. Look, I'm a climate justice activist. Despair is my constant companion. By now, it's almost an old friend. It seems every new report from the scientists is even more depressing than the last. As Lily Tomlin once observed, things are going to get worse before they get worse. The realization that it's too late to prevent significant global warming, too late even to prevent vast suffering, has had a surprising effect on me. Instead of making me more anxious and agitated, somehow it has calmed and steadied me. For decades as a climate activist, I felt like I was in a rowboat above a thundering waterfall, rowing frantically to keep from going over the falls. Well, the boat is going over the falls. We are plummeting, tumbling, crashing into the unknown at vertiginous speed, and yet somehow at the same time in slow motion. Terrible things are happening and will happen. Millions will suffer. I believe millions will die, with the worst impacts upon those least responsible for the problem, people of color, people living in poverty all around the world. But it is never too late to save the next life, or the next community, or the next species. It is never too late to feed the hungry or welcome the stranger. It is never too late to do the next right thing. I vow to do everything I can to reduce the suffering, to tend to the wounded, and to build a more just world. But since I believe it is too late to head off catastrophe, I am resolved to do these things mindfully, with love and compassion and tenderness and generosity of spirit. Because given the certainty of suffering, the how of what we do is as important as the what, or even the when. As we plunge headlong into the maelstrom, even more important, I think, than the question, what am I going to do, is the question, who am I going to be? Our climate future is not binary. Everything's going to be wonderful, or everything's going to be awful, ecotopia or dystopia. The future will almost certainly have elements of both. And where the balance between them falls will depend upon an infinite number of choices. My choices and your choices and the choices of our children and their children and their children. We don't know what's going to happen. I hope that the human species survives the crisis we have created. But whether or not we do, we know that life on Earth has already survived 5 major extinctions. Life will endure, and intelligent life will continue to evolve, with luck and the grace of God, not only smarter, but also wiser, kinder, and more compassionate. As we confront this crisis, Potawatomi botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer reminds us, we don't have to figure out everything by ourselves. There are intelligences other than our own, teachers all around us. If we understood that, imagine how less lonely the world would be. So as we struggle to save our trees, what can we learn from them? One thing we can learn is patience. When we're in mortal danger, patience can be hard to cultivate. Trees can help us. Trees take the long view. They have to. Many live hundreds, even thousands of years. Longevity counsels patience. Now, by patience, explains Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron, we don't mean enduring, grin and bear it. In any situation, instead of reacting suddenly, we could chew it, smell it, look at it, and open ourselves to what's there. The journey of patience, Chodron says, involves relaxing, opening to what's happening, experiencing a sense of wonder. To be patient means to slow down. On an exposed cliffside in the Canadian Great Lakes is a white cedar that's taken 155 years to reach the towering height of 4 inches. That's taking it slow. And even when a tree is under threat, it responds slowly. When a caterpillar begins to chew on an oak leaf, it can take an hour before defensive compounds reach the leaf to repel the pest. The hectic pace of humans takes a toll on our activism, our relationships, and our souls. We can be peaceful in our fervor, insists Charles Eisenstein. We can be patient in our urgency. In a society hyped up on hyper-individualism, trees remind us of the interdependence of all beings, as does our 7th principle. Far from the solitaries they may appear, trees are deeply embedded and active in a community of interconnection, which forest ecologists sometimes playfully call the wood wide web. Whether by interlacing root systems, fungal networks, or release of chemical scents, trees warn each other of predators and harmful insects. They even share nutrients with each other. According to ecologist and Tsimshian native Dr. Teresa Ryan, when a tree in a warming forest dies, it donates its carbon not to its own offspring or even to others of the same species, but to the newest arrivals in the forest, those most likely to survive as temperatures increase. A bequest of generosity akin to altruism. Trees model for us the power of commitment, of choosing to be rooted in one place. When a seed takes root, it makes a lifelong commitment to that very spot. There it must adapt or die. Our commitments need not be absolute, but they call us to strive and to struggle, to honor our relationships, our communities, and our principles. Commitment demands persistence. Trees persist through high winds, torrential rains, heavy snowstorms that bend their branches, ice storms that break them. If you've ever seen a tree clinging to seemingly naked rock, its root tips stretching to every particle of soil, sucking in the tiniest droplet of moisture, you know what persistence looks like. Trees teach us to live with loss, Every fall, deciduous trees surrender their leaves as they fall to the forest floor, enriching the soil not only for themselves, but for all who share their ecosystem. And trees endure the deaths of their companions from wind, fire, storm, disease, logging. Trees embody the perfection of imperfection. Admiring an old maple in Connecticut one time, I was struck by its sinuous beauty. And as I looked more deeply, I realized its beauty lay precisely in its imperfection. Had it been perfectly straight, perfectly uniform, perfectly symmetrical, it would have been grotesque. Only human beings make things that way. God knows better. Maybe I too could accept my imperfections as a mark of beauty. We teach what we most need to learn. When I spend time with trees, I sense their humility, kindness, and love. I used to think it was anthropomorphic to ascribe human attributes to non-human beings, but I no longer think so. Actually, I think it's anthropocentric to think so. We are all sentient beings. We know that plants feel pain and distress. Why shouldn't trees, in their own way, feel love? If you doubt that, I invite you to spend more time with trees, touching their bark, gazing up at their leaves, and just listening. Trees have been among my wisest and most reliable teachers. As a child, Howard Thurman, who would grow up to become one of the great preachers of the 20th century and a spiritual advisor to Martin Luther King Jr. As a child, he discovered a unique relationship, his words, with an oak tree in his backyard in Daytona Beach. I could sit my back against its trunk, he remembered, and reach down in the quiet places of my spirit, take out my bruises and my joys, unfold them, and talk about them. I could talk aloud to the oak tree and know that I was understood. It too was part of my reality, like the woods, the night, and the pounding surf, my earliest companions, giving me space. The day before yesterday, I visited the Howard Thurman home in Daytona Beach. I don't know if any of you have been there. I was afraid that that tree would be long gone, that it had been cut down or dead from disease or storm, but that tree, that oak tree, is still there. It is so beautiful. It is healthy. It is sinuous. It is majestic. And I approached it with reverence. And I looked for a spot at its base where a child might have sat and pressed back against the trunk. And I found what seemed to me the likely spot. I sat there and I pressed my back against the bark of the tree. And I wept. I felt so grateful to Howard Thurman, and so grateful to the spirit of this tree that had nourished Howard Thurman's young soul as it now nourished mine. And I knew I was on holy ground. Today, we need love more than ever. Climate and racial justice advocate Mary Anais Hagler confesses that love is what keeps her going. I don't mean any simple, sappy kind of love, she declares. I mean living, breathing, heart-beating love, wild love. This love is not a noun, she says. This love is an action verb. She can shoot stars into the sky. She can spark a movement. She can sustain a revolution. I love this beautiful, mysterious, complicated planet we get to call home, Hagler says. I love that nighttime symphony on steamy southern nights when the frogs croak and the crickets sing and the owls hunt. I love the delicate feel of honeysuckle petals and the warm, grainy earth and dewy grass on my bare feet. This love is strong enough to break through the terror. She is hot enough to burn through anger and turn into fury. She can shake you out of your despair and propel you to the front of the battlefield. It's a love that can also, even in the teeth of these most insurmountable odds, give me hope. If I'm brave enough, says, to accept it. As for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. But love never ends. I'll let the trees have the last word. With the assistance of their friend and interpreter, the late poet Mary Oliver. You know, technically, Unitarian Universalists don't have saints, but if we did, Mary Oliver would be foremost among them. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment and never hurry through the world, slowly, and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. "It's simple," they say. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, be filled with light, and to shine. Blessed be.
Thank you, Reverend Fred. We eat fruit from trees planted long before we were born. And we plant seeds that will bear fruit long after we are gone. in the sanctuary, the offering will now be given and received. What's given in love, we receive with great joy, and we say thank you. I'll remind you of our correction to the order of service. Our closing hymn, Fred will lead. It's "The Tide is Rising" by Rabbi Shoshana Mera Friedman and Yotam Schachter. I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The tide is rising, and so are we. Give it a try. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, and so are we. 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 This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. The storm is raging, raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. The sun is shining, the sun is shining, sun is shining, sun is shining. So are we. The sun is shining, so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. The world is ready, the world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. Past time, the tide is rising. Tide is rising. Tide is rising. So are we. The tide is rising. So are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. Our closing words are by Stephanie Kaza. Let go of the place that holds. Let go of the place that flinches. Let go of the place that controls. Let go of the place that fears. Listen, the wind is breathing in the trees, moving through the dark night. I practice courage, accepting the vastness of what I cannot see. Amen, and blessed be.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, John, James, the bell ringers, our greeters, our tech people, those who are preparing our coffee hour at this moment, those religious education professionals who are teaching our children, everyone who led today's service. Now I invite you to say our chalice extinguishing as Fred Seidel extinguishes the chalice. The words to our traditional chalice extinguishing are in your order of service online. They're in the text chat. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These carry in our house out into the world. Please join us for coffee hour in Gilmore Hall, then return after you've registered to vote on whether or not to call me as your settled minister. Our worship is over, but our service begins. So we hope this time together will help you through your week, will help you remember you are not alone. Blessings.